Number 8. Drug royalty. In July 2018, a couple was caught red-handed for running Britain's largest chemsex drug network, which funded their luxurious lifestyle. 35-year-old Diego da Souza Arruda Reis and his wife, 36-year-old Suellen Maguez, made millions together through an advanced drug business, using technology to offer a dial-for-drugs delivery service, using moped couriers known as Asphalt Angels, who operated through WhatsApp groups. Customers could choose from a menu of different drugs, but they could only purchase products if they had been referred and recommended by another member, almost like a members club. This exclusivity made it difficult for undercover police officers to infiltrate the organization. Diego and Suellen lived a life of luxury, renting a lavish mansion in Weybridge, Surrey, situated in the exclusive private estate of St. George's Hill. They enjoyed the residence's amenities, including a swimming pool, luxury gym and spa facilities. They also owned a central London riverside apartment, a vibrant orange Lamborghini sports car, and indulged in luxury vacations abroad. Suellen frequently splurged on designer shopping at stores like Harrods, Pravda, and Louis Vuitton. The couple established their drug empire after arriving in Britain in 2014, adopting fake identities along the way. They operated from short-let Airbnb properties, designated as A, B, and C, using them as bases for drug storage and distribution. The drugs were transported in suitcases from self-storage lockups around London to the bases, where they were unpacked into several envelopes and delivered to customers via a squad of 30 moped riders. The couriers took orders and payments, ensuring a smooth and discreet operation. During the investigation, the police seized over £3 million worth of drugs, including 2,000 litres of GBL, which was potentially lethal, crystal meth, cocaine, ecstasy and ketamine, as well as heroin, LSD and cannabis worth nearly £1 million were also confiscated. The downfall of the drug network occurred when the authorities started an investigation into a drug phone line associated with the organized crime network. A routine traffic stop of one of the moped riders provided a crucial lead for the police. During the investigation, the police found a lot of information on the driver's phone through WhatsApp messages. They were surprised by the level of organization within the network. The criminals ran the operation like a business, complete with spreadsheets and weekly meetings to discuss business ideas. Diego and Suellen, who were at the top of the network, saw themselves as legitimate business people. In July 2018, the police swooped in and seized a large quantity of drugs from 5 storage units. One gang member, Isabella Bragda da Silva, was arrested with £500,000 worth of drugs in her car. Another member, Bernardo Salles, managed the drug courier business, while Carlos Labadi da Silva was responsible for money laundering and managing cash flow and wages. Diego, the gang boss, fled to Spain but was later captured. Suellen was caught a few days later with £100,000 worth of drugs in her handbag. Several other members of the gang were arrested and convicted of conspiracy to supply Class A, B, and C drugs. Diego Melo dos Passos received 6 years and 8 months in prison, while Isabella was jailed for 3 years and 8 months and subsequently deported to Brazil to serve her sentence. Diego and Suellen were both sentenced to 13 years in prison each for their involvement in this massive drug operation. Number 7. The Father. In April 2021, a teenage girl and her boyfriend killed the girl's father in Las Vegas, and in shocking video footage they filmed themselves, they were seen laughing about the murder while on the run. The video was used as evidence against 18-year-old Aaron Guerrero and 16-year-old Sierra Helseth, who is the daughter of a former Nevada state senator. In the video, Guerrero smirks into the camera and welcomes people back to their YouTube channel. Then he mysteriously mentions that it's been 3 days since they murdered someone, and Helseth giggles and tells him not to put that on camera. Guerrero then kisses her on the forehead, saying that it was worth it. The two go on to discuss having a lot of sex, with Guerrero implying that it was a payment for their actions. He playfully slaps her face and pretends to choke her, while she casually reacts to the camera. The video was filmed in April, 6 days after they killed Helseth's father, 48-year-old Daniel Helseth. They were accused of attempting to dismember his body and setting fire to his house before fleeing in his car. The body was found burnt, with over 70 stab wounds. They were arrested in Salt Lake City less than a week later, while planning to escape to California. According to police reports, the murder happened after the teens were told by their parents that they could no longer be together. The motive behind the crime is believed to be their desire to continue their relationship. Prosecutors presented photos to the grand jury showing Helseth buying bleach and Guerrero purchasing a saw, lighter fluid, and gloves. The crime scene was discovered after Daniel's mother, Christine Helseth, grew suspicious when she could not reach him. Text messages revealed the teens' attempts to deceive their grandmother about her father's whereabouts. The couple was imprisoned on charges of conspiracy, arson, robbery, and fraudulent use of a credit card, as well as murder charges. Despite being just 16, Sierra was charged as an adult, but Nevada state law prevents her from facing the death penalty. Guerrero, being 18, could have faced the death penalty, but in May 2022, both Sierra and Guerrero were sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole in 22 years. Number 6. The Ken and Barbie Killers. In 1987, the relationship between Carla Homolka and Paul Bernardo began, as the couple later became known as the Ken and Barbie Killers. They got married in 1991, but before they met, Bernardo had a dark history of sexually assaulting women. Between 1987 and 1990, he committed at least 13 sexual assaults against women between the ages of 15 and 22 in a Toronto suburb. He also tried to assault at least 6 other women, often stalking them after they got off buses late at night. While police suspected him as the Scarborough rapist in November 1990, it wasn't until 1993 that DNA evidence linked him to the crimes. During questioning, he manipulated police into dismissing him as the suspect, and the samples were disregarded. Homolka, who suffered physical and psychological abuse from Bernardo, also encouraged his sadistic sexual behavior. In late December 1990, she helped him drug, rape, and kill her 15-year-old sister Tammy in their parents' basement. Homolka wanted to give Bernardo her sister's virginity as a Christmas gift. Tammy died after choking on her own vomit while unconscious, but the couple managed to make her death appear accidental. They even filmed a disturbing video, the Fireside Chat, where Homolka dressed up as Tammy, and they discussed their enjoyment of the crime before having sex on her bed. After that, they abducted, sexually assaulted, and murdered 3 more teenage girls, documenting their torture and even encasing one victim's dismembered body in cement. In February 1993, investigators finally analyzed Bernardo's blood samples from 1990, linking his DNA to semen samples collected from 3 victims. After police interrogation, Homolka confessed and revealed her husband's part in the murders as well. Homolka struck a plea bargain, receiving a 12-year sentence in exchange for cooperation and proving Bernardo to be involved in up to 30 other sexual assaults. Bernardo was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole, but in 1995, he was declared a dangerous offender, making it highly unlikely that he will ever be released. On the other hand, Homolka was released from prison in July 1995 and has since remarried and started a family with 3 children. Do you think it's fair that Homolka is free right now? Let us know in the comments below and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Number 5. The Never-Ending Crime Spree. In 1983, Alton Coleman, a 28-year-old man with a history of sex crimes and robberies, met Deborah Brown, a 21-year-old woman who had lived a relatively quiet life but suffered from a borderline intellectual disability, because of severe head trauma as a child. In early 1984, Coleman was accused of raping and killing a 14-year-old girl in Illinois and decided to go on the run, taking Brown with him. Instead of avoiding attention, the duo embarked on a crime spree spanning 6 states, committing 20 sexual assaults and 8 murders, including 4 children, which led to their inclusion on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. Their violent spree began with the kidnapping of 9-year-old Vanita Wheat, the daughter of a woman Coleman had befriended in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Wheat's lifeless body was discovered on June 19th, near Coleman's grandmother's apartment in Waukegan, Illinois. After taking a car from another friend, Coleman and Brown kidnapped Annie and Tamika Turks, aged 9 and 7, in Gary, Indiana. Tamika's body was found on the same day as Wheat's, while Annie survived after enduring sexual assault by both criminals. The pair continued their crime spree across the Midwest, burglarizing homes and killing their victims, often by strangulation. In Dayton, Ohio, they stayed with a reverend and his wife, who they spared any harm, but 15-year-old Tony Story disappeared, only to be found dead 8 days later. Crucially, this time, Coleman's fingerprints were left behind, providing essential evidence linking them to the crime. The FBI eventually arrested the couple in Evanston, Illinois, on June 20th. By that time, they had committed murders in 6 states, making them wanted by authorities in each. Coleman received 4 death sentences across 3 states, while Brown was sentenced to death in both Indiana and Ohio, with the latter later changed to life imprisonment. In April 2002, Coleman was executed by lethal injection in Ohio, while Brown remained serving her life sentence in the same state. Number 4. An insane armed robbery. In May 2018, a young couple from Carshalton carried out an armed robbery, threatening a man with a gun and stealing his wallet and phone. The incident took place at 7:30 a.m. on a bridle path near Banstead Station. The perpetrators were 20-year-old Benjamin Bateman and his girlfriend, 19-year-old Alana Cutie, who were eventually caught. After robbing the man, they used his car to withdraw money from a cash machine and then called for a taxi to take them to Mitcham. The police traced the phone number used to make the taxi call, which helped them piece together the couple's movements. They identified Cutie as a suspect and arrested her for a separate matter a week after the armed robbery, which revealed her wanted status. This allowed the officers to question her about her involvement in the robbery and charged her with robbery and possessing an imitation firearm. Further investigation into Cutie's background led the police to suspect that Bateman had been involved in the attack as well. When Bateman appeared at Cutie's remand hearing, he was arrested, and clothing linking him to the daylight robbery was found, leading him to be charged with the same offenses. Both Bateman and Cutie were found guilty of possessing an imitation firearm and 2 counts of fraud in a trial at the Old Bailey on April 30th, 2019. They were sentenced to 7 years behind bars because of the seriousness of their robbery. Number 3. The Brutal BBQ. In May 2018, in a murder case that left the judge astonished, Nanny Sophie Leone met a horrific end at the hands of a 38-year-old mother of 2, Sabrina Coudier, and her partner, 40-year-old Uyisem Medumi. The gruesome crime took a bizarre turn as it was revealed that the couple's motivation behind the murder was an obsession with Sabrina's ex-boyfriend, Mark Walton, a founding member of the Boy Zone. Convinced that Sophie was having an affair with Walton, Sabrina relentlessly pressured the young nanny to admit to the non-existent relationship. Over several months, hours of footage were recorded, capturing Sophie facing accusations of being a spy or a pedophile while enduring heinous torture inflicted by Sabrina and Uyisem. The abuse got worse, and Sophie was threatened with sexual assault, imprisonment, and violence. Deprived of food and already living in constant fear, Sophie was forced to make a false confession tape just weeks before her murder, claiming she had sexual relations with Walton. But the truth was that Sophie had never even met him. It remains unclear whether Sophie's murder was premeditated or a result of the ongoing torture she endured. Her burned body was found in the couple's Wimbledon garden, making it impossible to determine the exact cause of death immediately. But a later post-mortem revealed that Sophie had suffered waterboarding, torture, and beatings. The harrowing tapes of Sophie's abuse were played in court, providing disturbing evidence of both verbal and physical violence. Realizing the gravity of their crime, the couple tried to dispose of Sophie's body by burning it on a barbecue in the garden, using chicken to mask the smell. But a vigilant neighbor alerted the police after smelling the burning flesh. There were indications that Sophie wanted to leave, as she had written to her parents expressing her desire to do so. But her passport and plane ticket, bought by her mother, were nowhere to be found, leading to suspicions that they had been confiscated. Sabrina and Louise Smith received life imprisonment sentences, with a minimum of 30 years to be served for Sophie's murder. Number 2. The Moors Murders. Between 1963 and 1965, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley collectively carried out some of the most disturbing murders, and they later became known as the Moors Murders. The killings took place in and around Greater Manchester, where the twisted couple, both in their 20s, enticed 5 children and teenagers to their disturbing fate. At least 4 of them suffered sexual assault. The twisted series of murders commenced in July 1963, when Brady began talking about committing the perfect murder. The next month, they claimed their first victim, 16-year-old Pauline Reed. Later in the year, they kidnapped 12-year-old John Kilbride, raping him and ultimately strangling him. In 1964, 12-year-old Keith Bennett was snatched on his way to visit his grandmother, never to be seen again. The same year, they abducted 10-year-old Leslie Ann Downey from a fairground, subjected her to horrific abuse, recorded the torture on tape, and buried her on Sandalworth Moor. Her body was found 10 months later. In October 1965, they lured 17-year-old Edward Evans to an apartment and murdered him with an axe. The truth behind the heinous crimes came to the surface when Brady was arrested, and he tried to shift blame onto David Smith, the husband of Hindley's sister, who had been present during one of the murders. But with the evidence stacked against him, both Brady and Hindley were found guilty of multiple counts of murder during their trial in April 1966. England's abolishment of capital punishment just weeks before their arrest saved them from execution, and they were sentenced to life in prison. In 1985, Brady finally confessed to murdering Pauline Reed and Keith Bennett, leading to a reopened investigation. The search for the victims' remains took place on Sandalworth Moor, with Reed's body discovered in 1987, but Bennett's body was never found. Hindley died from bronchial pneumonia in 2002 at the age of 60. While Brady died at 79 in 2017, succumbing to unspecified chest and lung conditions. Number 1. A child's abduction. On May 15, 2020, a married couple was arrested in connection with the abduction of 16-year-old Louise Smith, who went missing in the Lee Park area the same month. A body found in Havant Thicket, a dense woodland, was confirmed to be that of the missing teenager, turning it into a murder investigation. Smith's disappearance was reported on May 8th, and the police conducted a thorough search of the home of the suspects, Shane and Chaslyn Jane Mays, both 29 years old, in Havant, Hampshire. The couple had been caring for Smith as she had been placed there by social services. The arrested couple was initially suspected of kidnapping, and they were released on bail after their arrest. A forensic team was seen collecting evidence from the Mays flat. Family and friends of Smith, including her cousin Mrs. May, expressed their sorrow and shock at the devastating loss. Mourners laid flowers at the woodland site where Smith's body was found, while community members shared their memories of the vibrant and charming young girl she was. Eyewitnesses recalled seeing Smith near a skate park on the day of her disappearance, and police were investigating the circumstances surrounding her vanishing. A post-mortem was conducted to determine the cause of death. The police urged residents in the Lee Park area to come forward with any CCTV footage that might aid in the investigation. They also sought video material from May 7th and 8th, the days leading up to Smith's disappearance, to gather more evidence. After an investigation, police found Smith's uncle Shane to be the real culprit. He lured her to a secluded area in Havant Thicket, where he mercilessly beat her to death, defiled her with a stick, and burned her body. After being found guilty of the teenager's murder, Shane was labeled pure evil and a monster by Smith's family members. The young girl, described as vulnerable, had moved in with Shane and his wife, who was the victim's aunt, after a dispute with her mother. The court was told that arguments occurred between the three, and Smith had expressed concerns about Shane's inappropriate behavior towards her. During the trial, the prosecution argued that Shane manipulated Smith into walking with him to the woodland using the promise of cannabis to sexually assault her. Shane admitted to manslaughter, stating that he lost control during an argument and punched Smith, but denied intending to kill her or sexually abusing her. In the end, the jury found him guilty of murder. The sentencing judge emphasized that Shane held a position of trust with Smith, and their relationship resembled that of a father and daughter. Shane, known as the Monster Killer, received a life sentence with a minimum term of 25 years for the brutal murder of Smith. The sentence was referred for a review under the unduly lenient sentence scheme. This scheme allows members of the public, including friends and family, to apply for an extended sentence if they believe the original one is too lenient. In the end, the appeal was rejected, and Shane's minimum sentence of 25 years still stands. Which of these couples was the most terrifying duo for you? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Bad Badger.